Republican legislators on the House Select Committee on the Coronavirus Crisis released a report that reveals a CDC official's testimony claiming that the agency colluded with teachers' unions in crafting its school reopening guidance. Now, this comes despite the agency's claims that such coordination was non-political. The report says that emails between the American Federation of Teachers, the White House, and the CDC demonstrates the AFT's cozy relationship with the Biden administration's political leadership at the CDC, positioning the union to have the ability to impose line-by-line edits to the reopening guidance, despite the CDC's past practice to keep draft guidance confidential. Joining me now to discuss this is Congressman Jody Hice. He serves as a member of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform and the House Committee on Natural Resources. He is from the state of Georgia. Jody, welcome back to the program.
Great to be with you, Tony. Thanks for having me.
And by the way, congratulations on being recognized by FRC Action yesterday as a true blue member of Congress, voting 100% with FRC Action's Faith, Family, and Freedom scorecard.
Well, thank you very much for that, Tony. It's an honor to stand for our Christian values. And boy, I tell you, the leadership that you and FRC provide to myself and other members of Congress is just unquestionably powerful and deeply appreciated. So it's an honor to receive the True Blue Award again this year. And again, for all that you do, thank you so much.
Well, appreciate that. Let's jump into this. The school reopening guidelines makes more sense now that we know that it wasn't parents that were engaged in it. It was the teacher unions that were helping craft them line by line. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Whatever happened to follow the science? That's all the Democrats were screaming while we were going through the pandemic and a host of other issues for that matter. They always scream, follow the science, follow the science. Well, where's the science when it comes to the CDC relying upon the American Federation of Teachers Union to provide guidance for when schools are going to be open and closed? This was nothing but a political maneuver. I think it's important, Tony, for people to understand that the Teachers Union of America gave close to $50 million to Democratic candidates. And so here is the administration working through the CDC to give the Teachers Union what they wanted, because this was a massively huge donor, I believe the second largest donor to the Democratic Party. And so this was an attempt that was purely political, all about giving the Teachers Union, their big donor, what they wanted.
Now, okay, this would be fine if the children were in the equation, but the children were left out of the equation, which is supposed to be what education is all about.
That's right. The children were left out of the equation, and many of them suffered mentally, socially, academically. Obviously, we had thousands of schools closed all throughout the country, and this is the reason why. And so, yeah, it was absolutely the children were left out of the equation. And again, I would add that also science was left out of the equation. This was purely a political move from the Democratic Party and the administration, the Biden administration, to pay back and give to their large donor what they requested.
Well, I'll have to say, I'm not surprised that science was left out of the equation, because science has been left out of the whole coronavirus response by this administration. Nothing has been driven by science. In fact, when these guidelines came out, there were questions raised by you and others about the connectedness with the teacher unions, which they batted down, saying, look, this was non-political. It's all being driven by the science. But now we know this is nothing but politics, and the administration was not truthful about it. What else might they be misleading us about?
Yeah, look, I mean, we can go right down the line. During this pandemic, we had mask mandates. We first were going to have just a couple of weeks of this thing to get behind us. Then it's one mask, it's two masks, then we need a vaccine. Then all of a sudden we have a vaccine. Now everybody's got to take the vaccine. Oh, and now one vaccine isn't enough. We've got to have a booster. Oh, and by the way, now we need a second booster and sometimes a third booster. Look, this whole thing has been a political attempt to control the lives of the American people. And this is a frightening pathway for our government to go down whereby the American people are literally held hostage to the federal government, be it children in schools or be it an individual going to work, and they are being told you have to take a vaccination shot that you may not want to have or lose your job. The choice is yours, no pressure. But listen, this type of stuff was just an uncanny attempt, an overreach of power by our federal government into the lives of the American people. And what's fearful to me, Tony, is so often once this type of power grab takes place, it's very difficult to get those liberties back. Once the American people are accustomed to having the federal government dictate certain areas of their life, the government tends to, you give them an inch and they become a ruler.
Right.
I mean, literally, and that's it works with the whole school issue as well. And the federal government's trying to rule our lives.
Yeah, it was interesting today. The president had his coronavirus update. I watched his press conference on that, thinking maybe he would yield to the request of the airline industry, the request of states, even the lawsuit that we filed against the mask mandates. But no, he's not pulling back on the mandates, but he did encourage people to get their second booster. So still following the same song and dance, regardless of what the science is saying. Jody Hice, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate your leadership on Capitol Hill.
Thank you, Tony.